actually. I guess it really all started when I was a kid. Been fascinated with sharks since I can remember, probably 5 years old. And the first time I saw a shark was on television. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this is the most incredible thing in the world. And then I thought, wait a second, parents always tell me not to believe what I see on TV, or don't believe everything you see on TV, so I thought it had to be fake. But the more of these sharks I would see on TV and these documentaries I would come across, and the books and things I would read, I started to realize that sharks were actually real, living, like dinosaurs in our oceans, and they were like these incredible predators. So it just all stemmed from being fascinated with sharks. I wanted to be a marine biologist, so I went through college, started studying marine biology, but then I got quickly put off of that because I saw the scientists like on their 5th, 6th, 7th year of studying, and they're in labs and they're writing papers, and I'm thinking, I don't want to write any papers or be stuck in a lab and be a poor scientist kind of guy. So I decided to become a filmmaker. And part of that process, I moved to Cape Town, South Africa, and I went to Hansby, where I started working with the White Shark Trust. And I saw my first white shark there, started diving with the white sharks there. And then National Geographic came down to make a documentary about the research we were doing. And I got along really well with the producer. She was impressed with my footage. She thought I was crazy because I was starting to swim out of the cage with the white sharks, and she offered me a staff job at National Geographic, so I took it. I moved to Washington, D.C., and that sort of launched my wildlife filmmaking career. And they sent me to film polar bears, king cobras, obviously great white sharks, lions, crocodiles, jellyfish, pretty much you can name it, any sort of top predator. I've been really lucky to travel the world and film
Amazing.
it.
So although it was like a lot of hard work, you were kind of right place, right time as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people like, you know, I always say, oh, I got really lucky, and then people are like, actually, you know, you created your own luck. Yeah. You loved sharks, you wanted to learn about them, so you moved to the sharkiest place on earth, started learning about cameras, so it was right place at the right time, but also I was sort of on that path where I knew I wanted to inspire people through media, because the reality is science is incredibly important. Conservation is a necessary, you know, agenda for mankind to coexist with wildlife, but the reality is a lot of, you know, people don't read scientific publications. Your average person won't read that, but millions and millions and millions of people will watch television or watch media on the internet. So if you can create purposeful programming that inspires people to care about sharks, care about rhinos, as opposed to reading a scientific paper with empirical data that nobody understands except scientists. So I think it's a really cool career path to, you know, inspiring people through media. Well, I like being underwater because I don't have to hear the director talking to me all day and telling me how to film and what to do and everything. But no, I mean, again, it all stemmed from sharks. So, you know, being a diver and learning how to shoot underwater, I was able to film orcas in New Zealand, all types of seals and elephant seals and all the saltwater crocodiles, different American crocodiles, Cuban crocodiles, all types of predators. And underwater, it's just like a whole different world. And it's not exactly how you see on TV. TV, usually, if you see a great white shark swimming, there's scary music and sound effects and an explosion or a sound of a dinosaur roaring. But underwater, it's relatively quiet. Sharks don't make really any noise. So it's just a cool aspect of filmmaking, but it takes a special skill set to be a good diver. I mean, it's one thing to be a good diver, but also to be a good diver and be able to film at the same time, so you can adjust your buoyancy while you're still getting the shot, or, you know, not run out of air in the middle of, you know, a mating event between white sharks, which would be amazing. But yeah, underwater, I do topside as well, but I definitely prefer underwater filmmaking. Jeez, man, I mean, South Africa has to be one of the greatest places on earth for terrestrial and marine wildlife. I mean, you got orcas, great white sharks, humpback whales, southern right whales, all types of whales. I mean, and then, you know, talk about lions and the big five and hyenas, and I've been lucky to work on 5 different lion films, a few cheetah films, and I have to say, you know, working in that terrestrial environment has a lot of other challenges that you don't get underwater, and vice versa. But after spending 3 months in the bush in the Serengeti or in Kenya, I always longed to get back to Cape Town or New Zealand or someplace. But you know, South Africa is where I got my start. If I wasn't living in Hans Bay and didn't meet that National Geographic producer or work with the White Shark Trust, and I mean, Lambda Day, one of the research boats, Oceans Research now has the boat where I saw my very first great white shark. It's right here in Mossel Bay in the harbor. 15 years ago I saw a white shark on that boat, and it's just cool to see, you know, research and science still running really strong here. And it's got to be the great white sharkiest place on earth. Which is good and bad for some people. Some people, you know, freaks them out, but definitely underwater, because you're dealing with visibility, sea conditions. Perfect example, we've been here to film this documentary with Michael Phelps, the greatest swimmer on earth. And of course, the day we arrive, you know, this was planned months in advance, so they couldn't really change his schedule. The day we arrived, they announced, like, oh, there's a 100-year storm, the biggest storm in 100 years coming into Cape Town. And we're like, are you kidding me? What the
Shark.
Because we only have a limited amount of time with this guy, because he's quite a famous dude, and he has other commitments. But he's dreamed of diving with white sharks his whole life. It's on his bucket list. I imagine it was like me as a little kid watching him on TV, just blown away by the animals. So, topside filming, you could see the animal. I mean, you know, there's all types of challenges there too. But I think underwater, it's a whole different skill set, a whole different ball game. Plus, humans don't live underwater. We're not meant to really breathe underwater. So you're on artificial life support. What scares some people, a good friend of mine just died on his rebreather a few months ago. He was a very talented filmmaker and diver and a really passionate conservationist. But so there's definitely dangers, you know, anywhere you go. But I think it's more challenging underwater. Oh, come on. It's definitely the great white shark is my favorite. But at the same time, I guess my second favorite, or closely matched, are orcas. Because I was filming orcas just 2 years ago in New Zealand, and it was one of the craziest experiences of my life, because I had filmed them in Patagonia on land, hunting sea lions and coming up on the beaches and grabbing the sea lions and going back into the sea. But in New Zealand, I remember the first time I was about to jump in, there were a pod of 8 orcas coming towards me, and the researcher said, all right, get in, get in. And then suddenly I realized,
Shark.
I really don't know that much about orcas. Well, like, I know if a white shark gapes at me, or if it starts to act slightly erratic, it might be, you know, getting aggressive or defensive. But I remember asking the researcher right before I jumped in, like,
Shark.
I forgot to ask you, how do I know if they're not happy with me, or if I'm doing the wrong thing? She's like, there's nothing you can do about it anyway, mate, so just get in, you'll be fine. So I jumped in, and it was an incredible experience to film orcas. But great white sharks, even though orcas eat them for breakfast, they're still my favorite.
But you haven't written a song about an orca yet,
No,
so.
I haven't written a song about orca. Probably the most challenging filmmaking job I've ever done is a polar bear film for National Geographic. I hadn't really worked in an environment that was that cold, that remote, that just challenging, because everything from just basically trying to charge your camera batteries that basically have about half the charge life or half the power life in a cold environment. You take your glove off for a second to adjust the camera settings, and your hands start to freeze. You put your face near the viewfinder, and the heat from your eye creates moisture or condensation that then immediately freezes on your viewfinder, and you're scratching icicles off. You can't. It's just, humans aren't really meant to be living up there either, so I found that very, very challenging. I also crashed my snowmobile, I cracked my camera in half, I had horrible frostbite. It was awesome, but it was really probably the toughest job I ever did.
Was it worth it to see the
polar bears?
It was
worth it. I got a mother polar bear with 2 little cubs coming out of the den and sort of rolling around and playing with each other.
Oh, wow.
So it was worth it. The most exciting filmmaking job, that's tough. I mean, one of the most fun and crazy and I guess exciting was actually in South Africa, in Hans Bay. We put a $200,000 slow motion camera on top of a helium balloon, and we were trying to get a shot of a great white shark breaching on a decoy. We wanted to get it on a natural predation, but we realized we were delusional with that respect. But it took us about 3 weeks. But finally we did get the shot, but it was not easy. For the first week, the weather was bad, the balloon hit the water, the camera almost submerged. It was too heavy to actually go into a housing, and still be able to take the payload of the balloon. But we eventually got a really cool shot of a white shark breaching, you know, perfect bird's eye perspective, like what a seagull would see, right, you know, as a seal is taken.
Oh, wow.
Got the shot, and then of course the very next year the drones became all the rage. So instead of like 3 weeks to get the shot, you get it in 1 day now. So they called it impossible shot, and we got it, and that was quite a cool one.
So before it became very possible, unfortunately.
Yes, before it became like your grandmother could get the shot now. I think, you know, really there's no like set formula, at least that I have found. I think the most important thing is to be passionate. If you're passionate about sharks, about lions, about rhinos, you really have to find something that you really love, and just get out in the field and try to meet scientists that are working with the rhinos. Try to volunteer for research organizations or conservation organizations that are helping that species. And then you're going to start to bump into people that have cool stories about the animals, and like, oh, you know, I know a place where rhinos can climb trees, or I mean, obviously that's not true, but I guess just working hard, being passionate, and trying to meet and surround yourself with people that already do it. Ask them questions about, hey, how do I become a cameraman or a camerawoman? And again, I think it's trying to be, you know, you should be humble. You don't have to be the best cameraman or woman in the world, because if you're an arrogant person and you're not fun to work with, the producers and directors don't care that you're take the best shot on the planet or whatever. They'd rather work with the guy who's fun to work with, really hardworking, and his shots are just as good. I mean,
Yeah.
It's really it's sort of a, I don't know, it's common sense, it's karma. Just be a good person, work hard, be passionate, and if that doesn't work, then I don't know, you can work at the bank or go work for Donald Trump or
There we go.
some horrible thing like that, whatever.
Desk job, yeah. Do you think you could ever do a desk job?
I did a desk job for 2 years. I worked at a software company out of San Francisco, and you know, it drove me crazy. Actually, the whole time, instead of like actually doing my job, was right around the time that Google became very popular and it just sort of came onto the scene. So I started Googling everything about great white sharks, and that's where I found Hans Bay. I didn't even know what it was. I only knew that Cape Town is where great whites were. I didn't know there was Mossel Bay, Cape Town, Phelps Bay, all these amazing hotspots here. So I've done a desk job, and I'll never do it again.
Of course,
Yeah.
yes.
Pretty much everything. I mean, technology changes so fast that, you know, you might buy a fancy brand new camera, and then a month later or 6 months later it's out of date. I guess the challenges are that everyone at the same time, on that note, pretty much everyone has a camera now. iPhones can shoot 4K, GoPros shoot 4K. It's really at your fingertips at this point that most people can afford a camera, but to excel in the field, you have to come up with cool stories, try to capture unique behavior. I mean, I know people here in this town, one that's actually standing right over there, that's actually captured footage of a great white shark eating a whale while it's still alive. So I mean, stories like that and images like that can really help jettison your career, and if you show this to producers and directors, it's really hard to break in. But again, the challenges are just everything from weather to just 20-hour days to, not sleeping very much, working very hard, and sometimes you work with directors that aren't very nice and they don't really care about your safety or your well-being. But the reality is, if you want to be part of that film, sometimes you have to suffer through a horrible director. But they usually don't last long, because again, just like I said about being a nice cameraman, directors that aren't fun to work with, they often get a bad reputation, and they end up working somewhere else.
Oh, of course, yeah. Or nobody wants to work with them.
Or nobody wants to work with them, yeah. At first, just like anything else, I was learning about sharks. What you see on TV is a bit intimidating and obviously pretty hyped up, and often it's not true. But I find sharks to be probably the most polite predators on the planet. The amount of times I've dived with white sharks out of the cages, tiger sharks, all these so-called dangerous species, and they've never bitten me. I mean, people have been attacked by sharks for sure, but it's usually they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. They're swimming in murky water by a river mouth. I've had sharks bump the camera and do this and that, but I think the more and more you interact with them, the more you start to understand them, respect them, and they're not malicious. They're just sharks. They've got to hunt and kill and eat things to survive. They can't go to you know, the gannet and have lunch. I mean, they got up, they're at the seal colony. So they look pretty ferocious and scary, but they're actually really polite. They're very smart. They're relatively cautious when they need to be. And yeah, so now I don't really think about being scared or anything. It's more about how I get a new shot, you know, a different, unique angle. And technologies like fin cameras and, you know, tow cameras and ROVs and all these cool technologies are really sort of revolutionizing not only cinematography but also science, which is really cool.
Absolutely.
And it's great to actually partner with scientists, because just like Oceans Research, I partner with them on shark fin camera projects, and we're going to push that even further. And you learn really cool things when you put cameras on sharks and they leave the boat and they start acting like a real shark again, a natural shark, and it's not being baited, it's not being tagged, it's sort of off doing sharky things, and it's like their hidden life.
Absolutely, yeah. You used the word attack there, so I know a lot of conservationists are trying to push the term negative shark encounter, because attack kind of suggests malicious intent.
Yes.
I don't know if you agree with that.
Back. So
you do, okay.
No, it's true, because attack, it does sort of insinuate that this shark came out of nowhere and for no reason it attacked me. Well, you were swimming by a seal colony. You were swimming in its dining room. Yeah. It didn't attack you. It investigated you. You know, maybe it was a really hungry shark and it was trying to feed on you, but, you know, like, it's like someone, you know, you sneaking into someone's house at night and them attacking you when they're really just protecting themselves or doing what they would normally do. So I agree, you know, the word attack is quite derogatory, and, you know, they may, it's not even like they're attacking a seal. They're just hunting and feeding on it. It's not like they're being, you know, evil. So anyway, people are really the most dangerous, evil, you know, organisms, creatures on the planet, and they attack each other and wildlife on a regular basis.
Well, sharks have a lot more to fear from us than we do from them, that's for sure.
Exactly. Be an optimist. I mean, you know, plastic pollution, overfishing, shark fin, you know, finning, and, you know, everything that, you know, man basically does to the ocean definitely has serious repercussions. I think if we get people's mindset to change, that, you know, even, you know, if one person, each person does their part, let's say, you know, trying to use less plastic, you know, definitely not littering in the ocean, trying to maybe make different choices in what you eat, and having ambassadors like, you know, famous athletes and celebrities that also care about wildlife and care about, you know, kids being able to see sharks for decades and generations to come. It's all really critical. So I think, but we can't just sort of stand by and not do anything. You know, you guys did an amazing beach cleanup. Things like beach cleanups and just, you know, scientists, filmmakers, the community getting together to show the world that, hey, the oceans, it's critical. Like, this is where our oxygen, our water, everything really thrives and is based around the ocean. So even people that live in the Kalahari are affected by the health of our oceans. So yeah, it's common sense, and some people unfortunately don't get it, but hundreds of thousands of tons of sardines every year to take thousands of bluefin tuna, to take just basically to harvest and harvest to the point where the stocks go so low, like, oh, the fishing's not good here anymore. Well, yeah, because you
shark.
Sorry, but yeah, I think it's just need to have legislation and governments to manage fisheries better. I mean, it's not just poaching. There's a lot of legal fishing that's happening that's excessive. I'm not an expert in fisheries, but I think, you know, scientists and, you know, experts around the world will agree that, you know, there needs to be more management.
Yes.
It's important to me, conservation, because not only because it's my livelihood that I make a living filming wildlife, and if it's not conserved, then I won't have a job. I mean, that's like sort of last on my list. It's just like, I got 2 little kids. I've, you know, tried to teach them the importance. Like, I remember watching my son kill an ant. I was like, dude, don't do that, man. That ant had a family. He's got a mom and dad. And then I could see him starting to think, oh, I didn't really think of it like that. So, like, now I still let him kill mosquitoes because they carry malaria. And that was anyway, you get the idea. But conservation is incredibly important, just for the entire world. I mean, sharks obviously play a huge role in the ecosystem, you know, amongst the food web, and everything's sort of interconnected. So if you're not a conservation, I mean, there's two sides of the coin. I mean, I've watched documentaries where you see these bloody shark finning and it's in your face and it's like death, doom, and destruction, and everything's really depressing. The networks don't like that because people change the channel when they watch those. They'll watch it for a little while, and then they're like, man, my boss yelled at me at work, I ran out of gas, my wife, I caught her with the FedEx guy. Like, I'm already having a bad day. I don't need to see more like depressing stuff. But I think there's a tactful, subtle way and an effective way to do it, where I like to show the amazing beauty of animals that are alive and healthy and doing really well, and then talk about, you know, what would happen or what does happen to them when they're not in a protected environment or a marine protected area. So I take more of the approach to show them alive and well and what the perfect world is like in these little microcosms, but not trying to hide the fact that, hey, this is sort of like the perfect utopia. This doesn't happen worldwide. You know, there needs to be protection, not just, you know, in South Africa, but, you know, or all over the world. So yeah. I started out in marine biology, and after my first year I switched to journalism. After my third year I switched to psychology. My mom had paranoid schizophrenia, and I was always fascinated with it because she was very crazy and strange. So I studied a lot of abnormal psychology, and I was still, you know, wanting to study sharks and learn about them, but I had already decided not to go down the academic route for sharks. So my degree in psychology, I actually use it a lot, interacting with crazy people, you know, really type A, super, you know, stressed out directors, even, you know, predators. I think you can start to understand animal behavior and just basic psychology, social psychology. I don't use it a ton, but I never took any official training as a cameraman. So, but I think just, again, knowing how to interact with people, knowing how to interact with wildlife, it makes all the difference in getting a really good shot or not getting a shot at all, or getting punched in the face at the bar, or not. I mean, like, if I see a white shark missing all its teeth, its face is ripped open, its pec fins bitten off, it's probably not the shark I'm going to swim up with my GoPro and like try to get a close-up of its eye or something.
Yeah.
Same thing, a dude in the bar is missing his teeth, black eye, bloody knuckles, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to also get a selfie with him.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's common sense, but I think I use a bit of my formal education in my everyday life.
Fantastic.
I'm very excited. Actually, Guadalupe Island in Mexico, they have a database of all the sharks out there, and they sort of have a policy if that you're the cameraman or photographer that's actually taken the first photograph of a shark they've never seen before, they give you the opportunity to name it. So I've actually filmed 5 different white sharks out of Guadalupe that had never been seen before. So I named one Emma after my wife, one Nova after my daughter, one Ace after my son, and then the guy was like, you should name one after you, but I decided to call one Monkey, because I act like a monkey sometimes. One is Monkey, and then I named one more, I think it was, I think after my dad, Dan, or maybe it was only 4. Anyway, I'm excited. I've never had a white shark named after me, so hopefully it's a very nice, friendly white shark, and it gets along with everyone and grows up to have pups, or if it's a girl or boy, I don't care.
So we'll try and find the friendliest one for you. Okay.
A friendly one,
Okay.
or, you know, they're all really amazing animals. I mean, I think it's cool, and I think, you know, programs like that where you get to name a shark after someone, it gets, you know, I know, like when I go home and I tell my son, hey man, there's a cool shark named after me. He's still quite young to even know that, like, he's got a shark named after him, but I think it's very cool, and I'm honored, and I really appreciate it.
Definitely, yeah. Actually, it sounds to gear excitement, because Michael Phelps was telling me how he named a shark Boomer recently.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we were in Bahamas with him on another shoot, and he named a baby tiger shark Boomer after his son. So
Brilliant.
it's pretty cool. And to get people to like feel like sharks are cute and cuddly, and like
humanizes them. Eh?
Yeah, like, you know, I hugged a shark and I liked it. You know, your slogan and whatnot. It does. You know, I know like anthropomorphication is like a no-no in science, but when it comes to like the masses and inspiring people, I think it's okay.
Brilliant.
Yeah. I sort of have a sort of a motto is like live the life you dream. So if you dream to become an astronaut, a doctor, a shark scientist, I mean, really almost anything is possible out there with technology and the internet and basically being able to learn anything you could ever imagine or want to. Again, you know, some people are disadvantaged. They don't have the money for even a computer or to log on, or they can't read. I mean, but I think there's hope, and I think if you're passionate, hardworking, and a good person, anything's possible.